Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I'm your host, Kristen Bednars, and welcome to the power of purposeful parenting. Our many experts are here to help us on our journeys to becoming more confident, calm, and joyful parents. We do this by diving deep into the physical and social emotional realms of development, allowing ourselves to just drop our expectations and just be truly present each moment with our children. And finally, by building a community of trusted experts where you can turn when your many questions arise. Parenting was never meant to be done alone, so allow us to navigate this journey with you, offering guidance, support, and giving ourselves grace when things don't go as planned. Today, I'm thrilled to be here with Roma Khetarpal. Hi, Roma.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Kristen. I'm really excited about this conference.
I am as well. Would you mind beginning by telling us a little bit about your background and your journey that brought you to where you are today?
Of course. So I'm a mindfulness educator, and my biggest advocacy is with parenting and in education. In the education realm, I teach teachers as well as classified staff, which is your recess staff, before and after school staff. I've trained bus drivers. I've trained para-educators, junior lifeguards. I can go on and on, but my programs, the parenting programs, as well as the I call them the mindful leader programs, in all of these categories, have impacted about 40,000 children, and I'm really humbled by that. So it's been a very, very exciting journey since the book got published, and it's here we are. I'm currently training at UCLA this is my second training to be a certified mindfulness facilitator. So I'm really excited about all the new tools that I can even share with you guys today as we go through our conversation. I really honestly believe, Kristen, there's no job more important than parenting. And when we put our heart and soul into it, and when we do this consciously, when we do this as a responsibility, with an intention and with an end goal, because I think they're both important, then we contribute to a future that perhaps we might not ever see, but we leave a mark with our children forever.
That was so beautifully put, and I could not agree more. I think parenting is such an amazing journey that allows so much personal growth as well while you're going through this journey with your children.
Undoubtedly, right? They are our biggest teachers.
They really are.
I always start my parenting talks with this, Kristen. I say, I stand before you because my kids have done a stellar job in raising me.
I love that. That is so true, and I'm sure every parent will agree with that. So what I'd really like to get into today is our world kind of feels like it's been turned upside down lately. I mean, we are in a period of social distancing and uncertainty with COVID-19. And then recently we've added racial injustice into the mix. And with all of this going on, it can be so difficult to manage our emotions, let alone help our children manage their emotions. So could we begin by talking about what we can do to help our children and sometimes even ourselves handling all of these emotions?
Of course. So the very first step is always to manage yourself, right? Because if we are not centered, and if we are not emotionally stable, if you will, then it's hard to have these conversations with our children. It's really, when we think about it, emotions are emotion, energy in motion. And every emotion has a frequency behind it. Think about the lie detector test, think about pulse rate, think about heartbeat, things that can be monitored that have frequencies. Similarly, emotions have frequencies as well. So these frequencies, when they remain parked in our body, these start to layer up. And when they layer up, at some point, think of a Coke can, right? Or think of any aerated water bottle. Once you unscrew the cork and you just starts to bring up the issues, everything bubbles over. So it's important as individuals, first for our own self-care, to really keep an eye out on that, to make sure that we feel emotionally balanced, to have these conversations with our children. Needless to say, our children, as resilient as they are going through a time like never before. we are chartering a territory like never before. So it's important for us to be centered, to hold ourselves really in kindness, to hold ourselves in love, with love, so that we too can carry ourselves through this. Not only do we have the responsibility of carrying our children through this, and our families and friends and parents. With the pandemic, there's so many layers to this. It's not just, your immediate family that you're taking care of. We're supporting our communities as well. So the first step would be to manage yourself. And a great tool that I like to share with parents is called STOP, S-T-O-P. So S stands for stop. T is take a breath. O is observe. And P is proceed. So when you feel that frequency rising within you, when you feel that emotion rising within you, first stop everything you're doing. If we don't address our emotions, they're like those little kids that keep knocking until you open the door, right? When you're in the bathroom and your child wants to come in, and they'll keep saying, "Mom, mom, mom," and knocking on the door. That's how emotions are. That's because they're the voice of our inner child. They're literally this inner voice that has been sitting there and asking for attention. So taking that moment to stop everything that you're doing, to take a breath. When we align our mind, which our mind is the monkey mind, it's constantly jumping around. When we align our mind with our physical body, we actually bring ourselves into presence. And that's the point. We feel anxious when we have fears piling up. We feel the emotions, whether it's frustration, fear, whatever the emotion might be, we feel that when our mind drifts further and further and further away from our body. So we want to make sure that we keep this mind, this monkey mind, as close into our body as possible. So that T is take a breath. So first you stop, then T, you take a breath. When we put our attention, when we put our awareness on our breath, then we bring our mind into the present moment. And that's the point, is to stay here, to be here now. And truly, that's a definition of mindfulness. I get asked this all the time. How would you define mindfulness? Mindfulness is being in the present moment, literally paying attention to the present moment, bringing your awareness into the present moment with no judgment, with acceptance, and with a willingness to be with what is. And this footnote of the willingness to be with what is, this is the hard part, especially when it comes to our emotions. We don't know how to be with our emotions. We know how to be with other people's emotions. We know how to be with our children's emotions, but we really never have been taught or trained or have the practice of sitting with our own emotions. So this T, taking a breath, gives you that opportunity to dial into your emotions and to come to the present moment and really to feel what you're feeling and be okay with it. And then the observe, the O, where am I feeling this in my body? Which part of my body? Does my neck tighten up? Is my back hurting? Are my legs clamped? Is my jaw clenched? What am I doing? What's my bodily reaction to this emotion? And the way I look at it, there are two major umbrellas of emotions. There's love and there's fear. So anything that's fear-based has a specific trigger. We carry it in some physical space in our body. So that observe is to see where you're carrying it in your body. And then using that breath to release it, to let it go. Like I carry tension in my neck and shoulders. So when I align with my breath, I literally put my attention right here at the tip of my nostrils and notice my breath going in and out. And I'll immediately notice that I'm doing this internally, right? It feels like a this. So just letting that go and really letting that relax and taking a breath or two in addition to let that tightness out of your body and then to proceed. Now, what that proceed means, do I need to sit with this emotion? Do I need to call it forth? Do I need to label it, which is a great way of addressing the emotion? And we can talk about that as we move along. And then, of course, either proceed in that way, or if you feel like you've self-managed, then you can proceed having a conversation with your child.
I love the STOP method. I've never really thought about it that way. And the thing that I think really I appreciated, there was so much there that I think is valuable for parents. But what really spoke to me is when you said how your emotions are like that inner child. Because I think as a mom, it's so easy to get caught up in what our children need. That it's easy to forget about what we need, and that our emotions matter too. And it's so easy, like you said, to just turn to their emotions and be able to acknowledge their emotions and be there for them. Whereas our emotions, it's like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. I don't have time to deal with that. And
Mm-hmm.
to really give it that time is something that I think, it's easy to push that inner child aside. And if you think of it like another child, like you have to let that inner child speak, that's something that I think is something that parents really need to hear.
Yeah, Kristen, think about when you're talking to somebody about your emotions, or if you have a friendship where somebody's not emotionally aware, or just is not comfortable talking about their emotions. What happens? You feel like you're not seen or heard by that person, right? You feel like that conversation is shallow, if you will. That friendship, we call it platonic. That's a surface friendship. And the crux behind that is that the other person doesn't acknowledge your feelings, or they don't acknowledge your thoughts, whatever the case might be in that relationship. Now think about us doing that to ourselves all day long. We do that to ourselves all day long, you
We
know?
do.
Yeah, so really validating yourself and what you're feeling, that's the first step. And it's mandatory. It's really mandatory. It's not an option. If you really want to be mindful and conscious and have that relationship with your child. Now, let me talk about relationship for a second, because we really don't come into parenting with um, any preconceived direction. When you take a job, we have direction, like this is what I want to do, this is what I want to be, and I'm going to go backwards. When you go to school, I'm going to school to be a so-and-so. When you join a gym, I'm joining a gym because I'd like to be healthier and lose X amount of weight or gain muscle mass or whatever it might be. So we always have this goal and plan.
Yes.
And then we come into raising little humans with zero idea of, what that end goal is. Now, mind you, we all have the best of intentions,
Right.
undoubtedly. And we all know what we want for our children. All of us, we know this. We want to raise our children to be happy, to think positive, and do good. This is the tagline of my company, Tools of Growth, right?
Yes.
And of course, we want our children to be happy, and we want them to thrive, and we want our children to think positive so that even when they make mistakes, they're not hard on themselves and they don't get down on themselves, that they're able to bring themselves to positivity and to move forward in a way that's conducive to thriving in life. And then we want our children to do good, right? We want them to do good for themselves, be good human beings, and to do good for everybody around them. So hands down, we know what we want for our kids. But what do we want out of this right of parenting? We never think about that. And the key here, what we want out of this right of parenting, is the relationship. When I ask parents this question in parenting workshops, there's pin drop silence. And usually, because we're not used to being asked, what do you want? Again, we're going to go back to that self-care part of it, right? We're not used to addressing ourselves. What do I want out of parenting? When I ask parents, it's usually the first 10 answers are, well, what I want is I want my kids to be happy. And I say, no, that's not. What do you want? You already told me what you want for your kids. Now tell me what you want for yourself. So keeping an eye out on this relationship, right? Because, when our children have flown the nest, and if they end up in an Ivy League school, but they never end up speaking with you, or do not like to be in your company, or they don't bother to return a phone call, that guilt and doubt there's not much you can do about that at that point. That's the relationship that you want to build. So your child could have just decided to take 4 years off of school, but if you have a good relationship with them, you're okay with it. You can talk through things. You can commune. You can come together. Communication is communing. right? That's the base word. You can come together with your child. So keeping that eye on that relationship is of the utmost importance, because when we keep an eye and we have that end goal that this is what I want, that's all I want is a good relationship with my child, then when the moments show up where you need to show up for them, where you need to be there for them, you'll remember in the moments of connection and disconnection that that relationship is what I'm building. And the relationship actually gets stronger in moments of disconnection. You know, disconnections are red carpet invitations for all of us to grow and to strengthen and to grow deeper roots in that relationship. So circling back to what you said, you know, having that relationship with our children starts first with having the relationship with ourselves. So self-managing, having that relationship with yourself, addressing what you're feeling, that opens up your power and it opens up space, right? It opens up space to have conversations and to carry. You need to hold space for your children, to have these conversations with them about emotions. And if you don't have that internal bandwidth, then that's when we get upset, and that's when we get triggered and we'll fire back at them, or we'll ground them, or give them a consequence for completely unrelated. You know, you're talking too loud, I'm going to take your iPad away. You know, we do these mindless things, right?
Yeah.
Where we're so disconnected, you know. So it's important for us to address our own emotions so that we can carry our children through this as well.
That is so beautifully put. And I think as you build that communication, even those moments where there's tantrums and power struggles and all of those things, it, like you said, those are opportunities to grow and build that relationship. Those moments that sometimes you feel like are the ones that test your patience more than anything can sometimes end up being beautiful opportunities to go that next level with your relationship with your children. And as hard as it might be to view it as that at the time, I think that's just a wonderful way to think of it. And sometimes it helps keep you as the mom centered when you think that way, because you're like, okay, this is an opportunity to bond with them, an opportunity to connect, and an opportunity to help them through this.
Sure, sure. And if we get triggered, Kristen, that's a red flag right there. If you're getting triggered, and especially if the issue is reoccurring, then you know that the child is trying to mirror something to you that needs growing up or healing, or at least in the least addressing. That's when you stop. That's when you stop. That's when you do the STOP and ask yourself, do the, you know, just stop completely, take a breath, observe. Wow, every time my child says this, I completely start barking. What is it in me? You know, what is it in me? What is that? Where is that arising from? Because, you know, all the expressions that we output into parenting are some impression from our own childhood, from our own experience. And remember, this expression has a tendency of becoming an emotional legacy, of being transferred on then to our children. So as parents, it's our responsibility at that time to stop and to address what's happening within us if the problem is repetitive, and then proceeding on to either telling your child, mommy's really upset, or sorry, dad needs a little break, whatever that conversation might be. And even if you have to drop it, like stop it and drop it, you know, drop the conversation right smack in the middle of the interaction. It's better that you stop than continue to do more damage in the conversation, because you won't get through to kids, right? So that's the first step is self-management.
I love everything that you're speaking to right there. That's just is so important, especially with all the challenging times that we're dealing with right now. I mean, this is important all the way through a parenting journey, but right now I think a lot of these emotions are coming up just because there's so much going on in the world. And I know another thing that I'd love for you to address is there's a lot of racial injustice going on right now, and like you said, it's something where sometimes our own biases can be passed on to our children. And we definitely want to raise this next generation to be all inclusive and all accepting as best we possibly can. And that's a sensitive subject to bring up with our children. So could you give some suggestions of how we can open that conversation and discuss this with them?
So the first step, again, I always say start with yourself, right? So the first step would be to educate yourself and understand this yourself, understand your own implicit biases. And this is not easy work to do. This is
Yeah.
work that, just like this is work of 400 years that has built up in the Black community, this is the work of 400 years that's built up in us watching this. So we don't
Yes.
even identify. Many a times we're not even recognizing. I myself learned so much through this last 2-3 weeks, in
Absolutely.
really understanding like what comes up in me, what triggers in me. Well, how do I feel about these issues? Have I ever felt racist in any way? Have I ever thought things like, oh, I don't want to go near that person? Or have I seen somebody passing, a Black person passing by, and have I moved away? I've really questioned all of this. Now, mind you, in my family, I have my nieces and nephews. My 3 nieces and 1 nephew are half Black. So they're half Indian and half Black. So this conversation has been very prevalent in my house since day one. We've had grandparents at home. My mother-in-law has lived with me for 35 years. So you can imagine that generation and the biases that they had towards this. And they were very blatantly expressive about the biases that they had. So really being those children's advocates, being my nieces and nephews' advocates for the family is work that I've done throughout, and yet I learned so much. So this is ongoing work. The very first thing is to make yourself comfortable in discussing this with your children. And we keep saying this and that and discussing this topic and talking about this because we are afraid to make a mistake. That's the point here, is we are afraid that we might make a mistake and offend someone. But having that courage, knowing that if we offend anyone in any explanation that we have given our children, then we can apologize. We can be vulnerable. We can do a mea culpa because we're learning as we go along. And that holds true for our children as well. So that very first step is to be honorable, to accept and respect, to accept the situation as it is. We have an anti-racism civil movement going on.
Yeah.
Racism has been part of the culture, has been part of not just in the US, very prevalent in the US, but globally this has been an issue. So to first accept that. And the second step would be to respect, to really respect the voices, the cry of all our Black brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and children that have been victims of this horrific, ongoing, continuous disservice to humanity, because it's really a way of dehumanizing a complete race. So respecting them and letting them speak. Right now, we just have to listen. We just have to listen and learn. This is our lesson right now. Now, once we accept and then we respect that they need to be heard, and the reason why there's such a big outcry from the Black community is because people aren't hearing them. We all are saying, well, I see no color. I'm one that comes from equity. I was raised with, just like I said, with a multicultural family. I'm the modern family, so I have no biases. That is what is setting an outrage for them. That's not the point. The point is, can you just hear me out? Let me speak. It's my turn. I've been asked to be quiet for generations. I've been asked to hide for generations. I've been walking on the street and I see a cop car and I have to run for my life when I very well know I haven't done anything. And now all of a sudden, all of you are listening. So please let me speak. Let me cry. Let me just hold that space for me. So this is the calling right now. This is our work, is to hold space for them. And we can start giving these steps to our children exactly how it is. Just these 2 steps are enough. The accept and respect, that's it. That's enough to start this conversation. And then conversations are always ongoing and you can build on them. But if you feel that you can hold that true honor in your heart about the anti-racist issue itself and educate yourself. I watched the movie 13th all over again by Ava DuVernay. And I watched it and I cried throughout. And then I watched it again because it meant something different to me today than it did when I saw it 4 years ago. It came out, I think, 2016 or 2015, whenever I saw it last.
Yeah.
So really understanding what the issues are and then age appropriately, underline, highlight, speaking to your children about this and opening up the dialogue. What do you think about this? How are you feeling about this age appropriately? Right? So those are the first two steps I would recommend. And the point is to open up the dialogue and to start the communication. Communication, again, base word is commune, to come together, to have an open dialogue. It is not to agree on everything. That's not what communication is. People have this distorted version of what communication is. You know, well, I'm a really good communicator because I said everything there's to be said about this. Communication is when you can bring the other person into a conversation with respect, with, you know, both parties being really mindful about engaging with each other, even if they disagree. So yeah, I would say start there. And then the next step might be to do a dealing with the feeling. Dealing with the feeling is an emotional intelligence tool that I love sharing with parents. So the steps are spot it, say it, okay it. Okay, so spot it, say it, okay it. So spot the emotion. If they're feeling fear, to talk about it, then start the conversation with them. If you ask them, how are you feeling about this, and they have nothing to say, then you can say, I see that you're feeling a little scared. Perhaps you're worried that someone might say something to you, or you're unsure, whatever it might be. Spot the feeling for them. And when we spot an emotion or label an emotion for a child, it's important for us to use the word feel before the emotion. I see that you're feeling angry. I see that you're feeling sad. I see that you're feeling mad, whatever it might be. Because when we do that, then we teach them that a feeling is not who they are. It's just it's a wave. It's what they're feeling. It's going to pass and it's going to change. So we teach them from the onset to create a little distance from the emotions. And that then is a great way of self-managing. So again, spot it, say it, okay it. I see that you're feeling afraid to talk about this issue of anti-racism. And it's okay. I completely understand. I was afraid too. I actually had to go watch a movie and I had to talk to so-and-so friend of mine, or I had to go on the internet and do some research. By the way, for all you parents who are doing some research, please just follow Julie Lithcott-Hines. She's a huge voice in this right now. And she really has it spot on when it comes to parenting. So if you're looking for some sane direction on education, I've been educating myself through her talks as well. So just so you know, that's, you know, it's important to have the right resource. And then be okay to make a mistake, even yourself. If you've made a mistake, get down on your knees and apologize if someone's hurting, right? This is about the human connection. And if we've had a human disconnection for generations, then using the tools to connect with kindness, compassion, empathy, those are the simple tools that we can use, forgiveness, apologies, to bind this together and to be humble and say, I'm just learning, you know, please be with me. And letting your children know that if you make a mistake, that's okay. You know, you're learning. And if you learn something, let me know. So yeah, having those conversations with them is so, so important.
The spot it, say it, okay it. I love how you worded that, because spotting it really is the first step of recognizing it. And even if it's something where, you know, like recognizing that someone might be uncomfortable talking about it and okaying that it's okay that you're uncomfortable at this point. This is something that it's okay to be in the uncomfortable zone. And this is what you can do about it. And then you can take that next step and begin out of what you said. I think the most powerful one that hit me was listening. Because like you said, they have their voices, they feel like they haven't been heard. And a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, I'm not racist, so I'm okay. Like I'm good because I'm not racist. But to take it to that next level of truly listening and hearing and acknowledging what they've been feeling, because that's really what it's all about.
Right. And dialing into, am I hearing this? Am I listening to this? Right? There's a difference.
Yeah.
Hearing is when you're listening to the sound. Listening is when you're paying attention to the sound and the source. Right? So that source, person who's speaking, making eye contact with them and speaking to them in a way where they feel heard, where they feel seen. This is the mindful listening part of it. And it's so natural for us to jump into a conversation. Even when we have conversations with our children, right? We
Yeah.
jump in, we cut the sentences off. And, even as moms, think about when you're talking about your children and you say, my child, you'd never believed it, this. And you say, you think that's bad? Let me tell you what my child did, right? And then we
Yeah.
cut the conversation so nobody ever gets to complete their sentences. This topic, that's not what we need to do. We need to let everyone complete their sentences without our opinion. This is the I see you, I hear you part, right? With complete surrender, complete humility. And if you feel that you have this rise to say something and the other person is really on a roll with this, then using words, I call them, holder words like, uh-huh, mhm, okay. This gives a satisfaction to our body of the frequency that's rising within us to say something, right? It gives the body the satisfaction. You just did that, see? It gives our body the satisfaction of I said something without really interrupting the other person. So we're still acknowledging what they're saying and we're listening intently to what they're saying and letting them complete their sentences. And this holds true in communication and parenting as well.
Absolutely. I mean, just like you want to let everyone in the community be heard, you want to let your children be heard, you want to let your spouse be heard. What you just said can be taken to any relationship on any level. So I'd also like to talk a little bit about all of those uncertainties that we talked about. Like, our children are going through a lot of emotions this summer. I mean, summer camps have mostly been canceled. We don't know what school is going to look like in the fall. And that can bring up a lot of emotions for our children and, how they're really feeling about this. And have we even addressed this with them? So what can we do as parents to address these concerns that are coming up for them and help them process all of these changes and all of these uncertainties that might be going on in their little minds?
Right, right. It's a huge topic. And I think the very first step is to teach ourselves, and this is all self-learning, how to be okay with the unknown. Our body goes into fight or flight if we don't have a plan, if we don't know what we're doing, if we can't see tomorrow, and if we can't plan for tomorrow. But in essence, in the reality of life, we can only half plan anything, right? Anything that we do really manifests itself only 50%. The rest of the 50% is wasted energy. So really taking this time to be okay with the unknown. And it's so uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable to just sit there and say, okay, well, I'm just going to watch TV or read a book. And then tomorrow I'll figure out what I need to do for tomorrow. This is so opposite of the kind of life that we're used to living. So taking this time as that very first step of going inwards, taking this time to understand who we are as human beings. This is a great time to do that, and being okay with the unknown and telling your children. Our children are wired, and literally all the time on their devices gets them wired a little more, right? Because
Right.
kids have a lot of energy, and they have a lot of, they have a lot of zest for life, and they have a lot of zest for learning and talking and socializing, and then you give them these devices, so their mind is never aligned with where they are physically. Our body's always physically present, but our mind is not, right? So bringing this mind into the body, that's what we say, that's when we say be centered, be present, be aware. So perhaps doing a couple of breathing exercises with our children, letting them know, come, let's breathe. Let's just stay here where we are, because guess what, honey? I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like either. And then, of course, you might see a tear come through because everyone wants to know what tomorrow is going to look like. This is
Sure.
just how we're pre-wired, right? So giving them that comfort, telling them, doing the dealing with the feeling. I see that you're feeling anxious. I see that you're feeling stressed, that you don't even know when college is going to start. I see that you're feeling anxious because you don't even know when you can play with your friends. I see your fear of, am I going to have to be home the whole time? How long am I going to have to be home? I see that. I hear you. I see you. And okay it. And literally, besides melting in the moment, there's really not much that can be done here. So then what do you do as parents? Then you start to build that flexibility and creativity muscle in being okay with giving them a little bit more device time, and being okay with having some creative exercises, running around the house, running up and down the stairs, getting really creative and getting flexible with, how can I make this fun for my child? How can I do, what are the things that I've always thought of doing that I've never done with my children? So that this moment can be looked back as a moment of so much difficulty and yet so much joy in times that we nurtured connection. Because the one thing that we are doing now is nurturing connections. You know, we don't have a choice. We either have a choice now to walk away from the opportunity to connect in a deeper way than we are already connected with our children or spouse or parents, whoever might be in that immediate realm of care for you. This is the moment. This is the moment to connect deeper. And once you start to make those connections deeper, once you start to have that fun with your kids, then you can blow off some steam with them. Then you can actually sit down and say, this sucks. I get it. I
Yeah.
know. I think it sucks. I'm so uncomfortable myself. What can I do to help you? When I'm down, I just have to look at you and my eyes light up and I feel better, whatever it might be, however you might want to express that in your own words, and asking them what they might need. What do you need when you're feeling down? Promise me you will come and tell me, because I'm here for you. I'll do whatever it takes. We're going to work through this together, and really letting them know that we are in this together, and yet giving them that open door to start understanding who they are in their existence as human beings, not just in their existence in their friendships and their societies and the cultures and races, but who are we, and the power that lies within. So this can become a time of great opportunity. It's really hard, Kristen, because we're holding the hand of grief on the one side, and then we're asked to hold the hand of gratitude on the other. Right? Be grateful, you're alive, you're breathing. And yet our entire lives have been disheveled, including our children. Stress and anxiety is on the rise for children because they're not expressing what they're feeling. So opening that door is our responsibility as parents.
That is so important for parents to hear. And I love how you mentioned that it can kind of open the door to build that connection, because typically lives can be so busy that you're running this place, running that place, you have this to get to and that to get to, that really to have that time to deeply connect, sometimes that gets shoved to the back burner. Whereas right now, that's kind of like the silver lining to this, that it really is forcing us to slow down in life. It's forcing us to take that time. And if we can really acknowledge that and honor that and really just do the best we can to build the connection, even though it might be challenging, it might, be terrible that you can't do certain things, you can talk through it together, you can build that connection, and you can make this a time that your children, hopefully, yes, they'll have the memories of, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, but hopefully they'll also have the memories of the things that you were able to do as a family and the connection that they had throughout this time.
One of the biggest complaints, Kristen, that parents have in the regular, what used to be our normal life, was my child doesn't pay attention to what I'm saying. They don't listen to me. We don't have time. We don't have time for connection. Would driving and talking to them be connection? I get asked that all the time from parents. Would having these conversations while we're driving be called connection? Oh, am I still connected to them if I'm waiting in the car outside while they're in their activity, whatever that activity might be? And all of a sudden, all of that is gone. All of that is gone. We are now physically all in one place. So what are we going to do with this time now that we have the time, right? It's really how can we consciously capitalize on this time? Because the ROI of this, the return of interest on this is that relationship. This is that deeper intention that we all want as parents, to have that good relationship. That opportunity we have now every day with our children home. And if despite this opportunity, if our children are going to end up being anxious and depressed, and we're taking them to doctors to pick up anxiety and depression medication, then shame on us. Shame on us that we can't open this door of having this conversation with our children. And depression and anxiety is absolutely real, and it needs to be addressed. And yes, there are children that need medication for it, but I refuse to believe that 40% more children all of a sudden during this time, I'm told by 2 pharmacist friends, and plus they're also running some new stats on this, 40% of the prescriptions now for anti-anxiety and depression are going towards our younger children, towards tweens and teens, and young adults. And the thought of that just makes my heart break, because it is our responsibility as parents to have conversations with them that can help with that. Now, mind you, I could be dead wrong on those numbers. It could be that 2 months from now that those numbers are so inaccurate, but even if it's up by 20%, right?
Yes.
What are we doing? Let's have these conversations with our children. Let's talk to them about it. Let's start these discussions, get them together on Zoom groups so they can talk with each other. They can talk with the parents there. They can all express their emotions together, because kids love socializing and find support with each other in expressing what they're feeling and being okay with what they're going to say. Keeping your feet on the ground when they say something about you in front of 5 people. My mom doesn't listen to that, or my dad always cuts me off and he's working and my mom's working and nobody has time for me. Really listening, letting them complete their sentences. That's the call of the hour. That's the need of the hour.
That I love that so much, and really just letting them complete their sentences. I mean, they have a lot of thoughts, and like you said, also being unattached to if they say something about you or something that kind of triggers you, to really just let them finish and let them get it out there, because it is going to strengthen your relationship in the end.
Yes, it's not personal. It's not about us all the time. Listening to them is about what they're feeling. And it's not a reflection on us mistreating them or us not being good to them. It's just that they're expressing what they're feeling, and feelings aren't right or wrong. They are what they are. And we have to okay that. We have to okay whatever they're feeling. Look at the times when we've all been through days of melancholy. I went through 2 days of, I would sob at the drop of a word. Literally, somebody said, "How are you doing?" One of my friends called and said, "Hey, how are you?" And I was teary-eyed. My cousin reached out and said, "Are you home? I miss you. I want to hear your voice." And I got, teary-eyed. So, this is a really high emotion time for all of us. We all are feeling not just the displacement of our own lives, but we're also feeling this vibrational frequency that's in the air that we're breathing, that we all share collectively, this vibration of fear and angst that we're all feeling as a humanity. And we need to know that it's okay for us to feel that way. And we are going to have days like that. And it's not right or wrong. It doesn't make you weak. And knowing that our children are having days like that. So if they're acting up, paying attention to that, thinking about how we perhaps acted up a couple of days ago for no reason. for no
Right.
reason at all. No reason that we can put in words, but if we break it down and we open it up and we unlayer it, sure, there are reasons. So giving
Absolutely.
children that kind of space, holding that kind of internal space for them, that is the need of the hour.
That's again so beautifully put, and I really hope parents are taking this to heart as they're listening to this and just thinking inside themselves of how have they been through this time and what can we do to give ourselves that self-care to then be able to show up even better for our children.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. Nurture yourself, feed your soul, do your reading, yoga, meditation, prayer, your faith, whatever helps you feel anchored. Turn to a friend, a relationship, to your child, whomever you need to help bring you up, to help uplift your spirit as well. Keep those people handy. Keep them right. Keep them a phone call away. I've made a little group of friends that, and about four or five of us that we all come to each other and we text each other when we're feeling down. And it could just be an emoji with a sad face or with tears. And the emojis that we get back are just hugs from everyone. And little things like this that can help carry us through these times and help build our resilience so that we can look back and know how we got through this. And giving art, sharing this with your children as well. If there are any tools and any people that you're using to lift you up that are sort of your comrades in this, then making sure that you set up a little network for your children, make the suggestion to them, have a group of friends that can help lift you up as well. So there's another great tool to keep us all lifted. In the end, we're all connected and we are all in this together. We can't say this enough, right?
Absolutely. Well, I can't believe it, but we're getting close to the end of our time together. And I feel like we could just go on and on because there's so much meat to everything that we've talked about. And I really hope that everyone is enjoying this as much as I am. But before we close, I would love to ask you one question that I'm going to be asking all of the experts on this series. You've obviously come a long way on your journey since first becoming a new parent. And if you could go back in time and give yourself one main piece of advice, what would that be?
I am the expert of my own child. Honestly, I am the perfect parent for my child. No one knows my kids better than I do. Every breath they take, every eye movement, every their body language, their tone of voice, no one knows it better than I do. And they are my perfect kids. So really knowing that this relationship is in itself the only perfection that we need to aim for. And this is why I titled the book The Perfect Parent, is for us to all know and believe, because this is something that I discovered through my journey, through asking and through looking at other people and through feeling unsure and through feeling the guilt, looking back and saying, you know, those moments that I relied on myself, because only I know my child better than anyone else, are the moments that made me stronger, are the moments that I connected with them deeper. So yeah, that would be it, knowing that we are the perfect parents for our children.
I love that. And that's something that I think in those challenging times can sometimes be hard to think about, but being mindful of that is so, so important throughout our journeys as parents and raising our children.
Yes, absolutely.
So I know you also have a free offer for the audience, and I'll let you tell us a little bit about the free offer. And there's also going to be an additional offer that we're going to do. So let's talk about the free one first, and then we'll go into the next one.
Sure, absolutely. So 2 free books, and those are going to be signed. I'll send them to Kristen, and she's going to send them off to you. And the other one, should I jump to the other one?
Yes.
That's a free gift for everybody. I will be giving you about 3.5, 4 minutes of a guided mindfulness exercise. I'll send that link to Kristen and she can share it with all of you. I'm looking forward to all of you getting this one tool on the feel, the experience of what being present feels like. And I will guide, it's a guided mindfulness exercise. I'll guide through that. And I know that each one of you will find great value in that. And share with your kids. do it with your children as well.
Yes, absolutely. Now the gift for the link for that free gift will be below. And as far as the 2 free gifts, every night at 10 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to have Facebook Lives in our Facebook group, which is The Power of Purposeful Parenting by Create, Connect, Thrive. So tune in for that tonight. And we will be offering those 2 books to the first 2 people that respond to grab those books. So make sure that you tune into the Facebook Live tonight, and we'll talk about our favorite takeaways from this conversation. And truly, there were so many valuable nuggets of information in today's talk, and I cannot wait to hear what your biggest takeaways were. If any questions came up, feel free to hit reply to me in the email. Come in the Facebook Live tonight. I look forward to connecting with you, and like you said, we're all on this journey together. So let's grow together in our parenting journey. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I appreciate it more than you know, and I am thrilled to share this discussion with our audience.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for being here with us today. And like I said, hit reply, show up in the Facebook group tonight, and I look forward to hearing from each of you. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see everyone tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.